All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon on the cyber capacity session number 2. We have actually spent an hour already yesterday on this topic, and we wanted to make sure that it gets the full attention that is due. In fact, we did quite a bit of warm up coming to this one even before this with our friend Tom Patterson on the Cyber Moonshot. Two days of full active engagement and discussion on this topic. And now I think with with the Cyber Future Summit and our initiative getting fully, I would say, funded by DOL, and getting the whole cyber apprenticeship program kicked off. In fact, today, 29th, they should be already doing a kickoff program, meeting with DOL. So we can't wait to get this panel kicked off. I'm sure you have a lot of expectation from such a high-flying panel, but also not just in terms of the ideas, but I think these are all doers. I met Chelsea on the on Cyber Moonshot panel, and Eric and I have been working for almost 3-4 years now since we founded CFF, and Mike Seller have been working with us for several years now, even before CFF. Angela I met recently, and I was really fascinated by the diversity, the action to diversify the workforce, and I thought it would be a great addition. She would be a great addition to this panel. And at Diana, she just joined our board, so we couldn't be more thrilled about it. We have been working together for years now. Now it's about to take this to action. So who could do it best? Eric Langford, I think, has done a phenomenal job joining a summit that we had 3 years back, getting an idea, and in fact, he had the idea, but he found the connection that could make it happen. I still remember, close my eyes and remember the picture of you, and a late friend of ours who's no longer with us, but quickly made the connection to GRF and made this whole K-12-6 happen. So congratulations on the work so far, Eric, and all of you who have been participating in this journey. But there's a long way to go, and a lot of us have to gather together to do this. So Eric, take it away. This is your show.
Great. Thank you, Val. And thanks everyone for joining. Just a little bit about me real quick. I'm cybersecurity about 20 years in the corporate world, moved into education. And like Val said, at one of the Cyber Future Summit events, had an idea for basically an ISAC, Information Sharing Analysis Center, that would serve the K-12 community, and it just launched actually about a week ago, officially launched. So that's what I do. And actually, I'll just go around with everyone. Chelsea, I'll start with you. I know we actually were on the same breakout group at the Moonshot, but go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, and awesome to be here with this group of panel, and Eric, you, and Val kicking us off. I am from Microsoft, where I am a senior security strategist on our digital diplomacy team. That's really a fancy way to say that I tend to keep my eyes and ears out for things in the public policy space on sort of opportunities to enhance resiliency and security in cyberspace with cloud security, critical infrastructure, which is a great last panel, by the way, and supply chain and 5G. So I would say focusing on education and some of the K-12 work is a personal and Microsoft passion of mine, so I get to be in a very lucky spot to be here and talk to folks today.
Angela, why don't you tell us a little bit about you?
Good afternoon. My name is Angela Cummins. I recently retired from the military after 25 years in November, and started a job in the federal government in the Pentagon on the Joint Chiefs of Staff as information management specialist and also electronic record manager, and where I manage over 31 mission systems, ensuring the records are properly dispositioned and also the record life cycle and all the great stuff you do with managing the chairmans and all the bigwigs records to ensure that the hackers who are salivating to get it don't get it, the information. So my last military assignment was probably my best military assignment, where I was the chief of total force diversity inclusion. And that's when I saw how critical it is to have people with different backgrounds, different races, different mind frames to come together to produce a great product. We have the stats, the facts, everything you need to see as proof that you cannot build a great business or an organization or anything without diversity and inclusion to be successful. You can make it, you can maintain the status quo, but you can't, excel above the status quo. And so that's a little bit about me in a nutshell. Very excited about cybersecurity, new into the field. Seen a lot of stuff about cybersecurity. The Joint Chiefs of Staff was taken down for 2 weeks, got hacked, and that's when I said, I got to get into cybersecurity because I mean this is like ridiculous. When we couldn't do anything, people were not knowledgeable. The contracts kept changing, so the people were not knowledgeable on how to get us back up and running. And so that's enough about me. But I'm very hyped and eager to learn about cybersecurity, and eventually I'll probably leave the federal government and do cybersecurity full time. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. And Dr. Burley?
Good afternoon, everyone. Excuse me. Good afternoon. I'm Diana Burley. I'm the Vice Provost for Research at American University, which means I'm the Chief Research Officer responsible for shepherding the research enterprise, research administration, and also helping to both set and achieve the strategic direction of research across the university. I've only been here for just over 3 months. Prior to that, I was at George Washington University, where I led a cybersecurity research institute and have in fact been working in the cybersecurity space for more than 20 years. Much of my work focuses on developing the cybersecurity workforce, advancing cybersecurity education. I have led several national and global initiatives related to advancing curricula and the structure of how we move forward in thinking about the workforce. I've led those initiatives on behalf of the ACM and IEEE, on behalf of the National Academies of Science, and so really working to achieve a robust cybersecurity workforce that is rich in quality and quantity and has the requisite diversity such that we are able to address the dynamic nature of the evolving threat that we see around the world and across sectors. As Val mentioned, I recently joined the board of the CFF and am particularly excited to work with my colleagues through this organization to help to advance the agenda and pay specific attention to how we can work collaboratively across academia, industry, and government to move the cybersecurity workforce development forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Burley. And Mike?
Good afternoon. Mike Saylor. I'm currently the CEO for Black Swan Cybersecurity, but I'm also a college professor. I've been in IT for about 30 years, in cyber as long as there has been. And I've seen this problem from every aspect, just about, I think, from an educator's perspective, business, entrepreneur, business building, hiring manager perspective, and then also the employee applicant perspective. So working with Eric and CFF and even K-12 and higher education on how do we align industry and academics and workforce and critical infrastructure and even just the discipline. Something that I've been very passionate about. This is also I started teaching college 20 years ago. So I've seen, the excitement and then the eventual disappointment in a lot of cyber passionate people that think certification and education is what gets you the job. And currently we're just, that doesn't line up with reality. So eager to engage in the discussion today and see if we can continue to work towards some solutions.
Great, thanks, Mike. I think where I want to start is, and I'll give the first question to you, Angela, or first topic, I guess, to let you start. And what made me think of it is, as you were talking about, you came in kind of new to cybersecurity and seeing a lot of people you worked with that just didn't think about it. They didn't have the mindset. They didn't. And so one of the things that's talked about is cybersecurity needs to be something, and Dr. Beverly Scott used this term at the moonshot. It needs to be baked into K-12, meaning starting at kindergarten, we just need to teach, hey, you need to think about something, you know, you need to think about these things. So basically security by design, instead of later on, let's try and bring it in. Let's start there. So from your experience, you know, what are your thoughts around that? And what do you think, how do you think we, you know, could go about accomplishing that?
Thank you. Oh, that's an easy one. We can start with COVID-19 environment. And I love to talk about our current situation when it comes to cybersecurity, because a lot of people working from home, teleworking, and they're, for lack of better words, being sloppy with materials, with emails, government, federal emails, logging online, going upstairs, get busy talking, and I mean, leaving stuff open. Anyone can hack in. So my thing is to start, like my son, he's taught himself programming, coding from the beginning. And what we used to do in diversity inclusion, we would go to the different high schools, and we will break it down to the different kids so they could understand, like, you know, someone can take over your cell phone. You wouldn't like that, would you? And no. So let me tell you how a great skill to get in, a great field, a great career you can get in to stop that hacker. So we used to bring it down to their level, and that's the best way to start. We always, when we're adults, it's hard to mold adults. We're like, you can't teach old dogs new tricks. But if you start very young and you bring it down to their level, not talk about, because you don't lose kids. I mean, he's a senior in high school. If I talk to him and he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and he's like playing video games, and I'm still talking. And so my advice is to, you know, bring it back, relate everything to and to get them excited about it. Like, oh yeah, you know, I want it, because they're very territorial. I want to protect my territory. And yeah, so I want to get in that field to learn how to do that. So that would be, did I answer your question, or is it?
Yeah, no, that's great. And actually it brings up another good point, because, you know, bringing it to their level. I just read earlier this week an article, actually, Ron Gula posted, and basically saying, look, we need to change what we talk about when we talk about cybersecurity, because when you bring up that term to kids, to people that aren't in the industry, it's just like, okay, yeah, what do you mean by that? And he gave a great article that said we need to start talking about it and call it data care, like healthcare, saying, hey, we have all this data out there about us, about our families, about everything. We need to take care of that data. So, and anybody feel free to jump in, but, you know, what are your thoughts on that, of starting to refer, instead of talking cybersecurity, talking, hey, let's talk about taking care of our data, the things, you know, the data, that who we are.
Yeah, and I'm happy to jump in, Eric. I think going back to some of your original questions there on K through 12 and then the data, reframing how we consider cyber. I mean, I would even say, you know, to some degree, it's not really a language barrier. When I was sort of preparing for this call, I pulled together a bunch of facts that are sort of floating out there, and I realized that I'm going to be the doom and gloom person on this panel, because I walked away learning that, you know, according to code.org, only 47% of high schools even teach a foundational computer science program, let alone cyber. And I was like, wow, that's a shocking statistic, but maybe not so surprising, you know, if we sort of think about our own experiences and sort of knowledge in this space. And I think just getting people comfortable with, whether we call it, you know, being sort of a data steward, whether we can consider it cybersecurity, whether we can even more broadly computer science, just getting it a comfortable vernacular in our schools would go a long way. I mean, I think we can get a more, you know, curriculum sort of effort there would go a long way. So this is a quick time I have for that.
Anyone else have comment on that or idea?
I'll say, I'm sorry. When I first told people I was going to go into cybersecurity, they started calling me, asking me to fix their computer. And so, and definitely, I think your idea, what you said, was spot on. You need to change the way it's advertised so people, you know, will know what it is and then will be excited about it.
I'll add too that, just based on the demographic, younger kids are more focused on socialization than, socializing than security. They want to connect and share without really understanding how that happens and where their data goes and how long it lives there and who else can see it. So definitely that idea of teaching them to be good custodians of their own information, and to some degree they develop that in specific situations like their gaming profile or something that's truly important and applicable to them. So teaching them to expand that mindset and perception to much broader use of technology, whether it's their phone or their computer or something else, would definitely go a long way too.
And I would just add that, until now, we have really positioned computer science, particularly in the K-12 space, we've positioned it as a specialty, as something that, you might decide to do. You might want to go down that track, just like you might want to go down, in my day, you might want to go down the shop track or the beauty school, or, but we've positioned it as something other, something special. And I think that we have to recast that in a way that we position every child takes English, every child learns how to read, right? Because these are the basic skills. Every child learns how to count. These are the basic skills that we need to have in order to survive in society and contribute to society. And so I think that we have to begin to wrestle with the differentiation between the basic skills that anyone would need in order to be a full contributing member of society and the specialized skills. We all take math to a certain level. Not all of us become mathematicians, right? And so if we can look at cybersecurity and the underlying computer science behind it, whether it's computational, whether it's about data, however we define those core skills, we have to get to a place where we're able to differentiate and say, this is basic. This has to happen. And then people can move on and get more and get advanced study and specialized careers.
No, that's spot on. And actually, there's just to make everyone aware, there's an initiative that the state of North Dakota has implemented called K through 20W, which is kindergarten through basically PhD or workforce, saying, and when you're in school, starting with kindergarten, you will take some type of cybersecurity related course all the way through. So if you're working on your PhD in English, you're going to take a cybersecurity course, just so that becomes baked in and it just becomes what they think about. So a very important thing that I think gets overlooked, and I think, Dr. Burley, what you said is, instead of looking at it as let's just teach cybersecurity, make it part of it. This is just a skill set. Understanding your data and needing to protect it is important. Let's jump just a little bit to a different question or a different area. And this is going to be around more the traits for cybersecurity. There's a nice paper that was out about a year or so ago called "The Future Cybersecurity Workforce: Going Beyond the Technical Skills for Cyber Performance," and in it they list the traits they need: systemic thinkers, which is everybody talks about, but also team players, technical and social skills, civic duty, continued learning, and communication. So a lot of it are things that aren't really technical, but things that need to be developed so that that they can understand and communicate and share the information that they need about information security. So what are your thoughts on that? Mike, I'll start with you on that one.
I've got a lot to say about that, but what I'll start with is, in addition to all those traits, and I think that's a good list. What I've seen is several people that really check all those boxes, but it's not that they're lazy. They just feel like they've accomplished their education level or their skill level, and they're satisfied with that. And that's a problem when it comes to cyber, because that's good for today, but not tomorrow or next week or an hour from now. And so I think another very important thing to add to that list is that kind of lifelong learner type approach, where you've always got to be interested at least It might be a chore, but you're interested, you're capable, you will continue to learn, stay in touch, continue to research, expand your knowledge. And I think to most of the people that I know that have been successful in cyber, they're just the way they are. And so, but I've seen in students are people that have changed careers, or they've expressed interest in cyber because it is cool, it is up and coming, it's a good career field, but they're not that person that wants to continue to learn and put the effort into staying on top and current. And then leadership is another really key characteristic that we push in developing and mentoring people getting into this field. Understanding that you don't have to be the technical person or the smartest person in the room. You just have to be the one that can coordinate all the right resources and take the initiative. So those are probably the two biggest ones that I see that weren't in that list.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, I think in addition to thinking about those categories of, what it takes to be a successful cyber professional, I think it would be great if, us as like a group or holistically and everybody sort of watching this rethinks what the career path looks like for a cyber professional, because I think you can broaden the interest in it by thinking like, oh, am I gonna be the guy who is a security engineer sitting behind the desk, from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning doing a shift like that? Or am I going to be somebody like myself who is a policy professional who is engaging in cyber? And like the folks I work with on a day-to-day, we've got cyber attorneys, I've got security engineers, we've got managers and executives. And I think just like rethinking how we think about it's not a linear path, is sort of what I'm summing up and saying. I think if we could sort of broaden the view and insights into what being a cyber professional looks like, would be a very value add to a lot of getting people interested early. So,
yeah, I think that's a good point. And it even goes back to what we talked about earlier of, instead of focusing or instead of teaching cyber, you just teach those skills around cybersecurity or security in whatever field that they're interested in, English, whatever it may be. And actually, I think I sent this to you guys earlier. There's a good article. I think it says something about your next cybersecurity whiz might be an English major, and she talks about in there. She says some of the characteristics that they naturally have or enjoy, and the reason they like English, like cultural study, empathy, storytelling, things that they learn are some skills that could help problem solve in the cybersecurity realm. But I think that's very important, Chelsea, of getting people to understand people can come from all different backgrounds inside. And the other thing too, I think, and Mike, you probably see this all the time, is this idea that people come in and think, oh, cybersecurity is just a red teamer or a pen tester. That's it. There is so many different areas. It's so broad, so many different things that you can branch into in security. And even if that's not your area of specialization, like maybe you want to be an accountant, but you learn cybersecurity, and that helps you within some of your forensic accounting and things like that. So a lot of areas like that. Dr. Burley, I'll let you jump in on that.
I couldn't agree more. I think some ways we are our own worst enemies, because even in the conversation that we're having, we're talking about becoming a cybersecurity professional. And the truth is, I don't really know what that means. And I've been doing this for a really long time, right? Because it means so many different things. And so when we go in and we start talking to students about becoming a cybersecurity professionals, the reality is that if the 5 of us went into a classroom to talk about what it means to be a cybersecurity professional, we would all have in the back of our minds probably a different aspect of the field. And we would be talking about a different aspect of the field. And as a result, it becomes confusing, because on the one hand, and this is not what we've been talking about per se, but when you hear people talking about cybersecurity professionals and the needed skill sets, immediately we start talking about computer science and how everyone needs to know computer science. And then you'll get to another part of the conversation and people will say, well, you don't really need to know computer science because you could be an English major. Well, I think for us, we know exactly what we're saying because we're talking about different parts of the field. But what we have to recognize is that when we're talking to lay people who don't know anything, what we've just done is completely confused them. And now they really don't know what to do or how to begin. And so part of this, I think, is for us to get away from the shorthand of talking about a cybersecurity professional and move to speaking specifically about different career paths in that field. We never say medical professional. We say doctor, nurse, EMT. We talk about different types of surgeons, and because the reality is that all of those members of the medical profession are important, but they are different pathways and they are different careers. And so we have to begin to unbundle our language so that we can be clear as we try to recruit different kinds of people to different parts of our workforce so that they know what to do and how to get there.
Yeah, and I really like that. And that goes to the diversity aspect. A lot of times when we talk diversity, we talk race and sex and say, okay, we need more minorities, we need more women in cybersecurity. But I think what you were just talking about is diversity across interests. And I think that's a very important piece that gets left out is, talking with kids and others and saying, what are your interests? What do you want to do? Saying, hey, I want to be, an artist. I want to be this. Okay, well, great. Then how can we build that in? But Chelsea, I think you were going to jump in on something there.
No, I wasn't, but you bring up something, and I feel like going back to Dr. Burley's comment, I started out wanting to be a graphic designer. I liked being on computers ever since I was a young kid. And then suddenly I was like, it naturally evolved into being a policy professional. And so I just think giving that visibility that no one path means cyber would just go a long way. It's not just sitting behind learning code. It could be, but the best teams I've always worked on had that diversity in experiences. They all came to the table, all ended up on the same project, very different ways they got there. And that resulted in stronger delivery, right? Or whatever we're doing in our day-to-days. I think it would be great if we could articulate that the earlier the better as kids are going into school. So.
And Angela, that's where you worked a lot in diversity. So what are your thoughts around that? I mean, of course, we need more of the other, but what about the diverse interests, across the, how do you get those people with other interests and get them interested and involved?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say, Eric, you spot on when people get, when they think about diversity inclusion, it's about race, it's about gender. No, we would teach people it's about diversity of thought. My boss he was an SES equivalent to a general officer. He was so into diversity inclusion. He said, I bet you when I get through with you, you're going to look at everything differently. You're going to look at that picture and see all the different colors like, oh, that's a diverse picture. It's diverse and inclusive with the colors. And so he got us very excited. So we were out teaching people, using even like you can eat a plain hamburger, right? Nothing in it. It's going to be plain. But if you put the lettuce, tomatoes, the cheese, the bacon, that's a good hamburger. That's diversity and inclusion. You just made, so, and people get it. So it's about, like you said, Dr. Burley, you have to break it down so people can understand it, not run away from it. Oh my God, cybersecurity, I gotta know how to do stats and multiplication times the derivatives and all this. But no, it's not. And so you talk about diversity and inclusion when it comes, like I'm in the class right now in the version of when I go to, the version academy. We have people in my class who one guy is a plumber. One guy's electrician, one guy is something, all over the place. But our minds, when we have this class, it's like we coming up with good ideas because we're the worst enemy sometimes are people who are in the field already because they're stuck in their mind frame. And so when you bring all these diverse thoughts together, you're like, wow, and I've been doing this for 25 years and I never thought about if you put the top on the bottle that way, it'll work better. I was trained to put the top on the bottle like this. And so I think the diversity and inclusion is the best way to go. It's the only way to be 100% successful, and also to improve or push this agenda of, not really agenda, but to
No,
attract more people
that's a
into the
great
field.
point, because a lot of times, and this is in any industry, you get into an echo chamber and you don't hear those ideas, but somebody can come in from an industry, a sector, whatever, that is totally outside and point out immediately, hey, here's something that you're not doing that you might want to do, or that we're doing. And I think the panel before, they talked a lot about, cross-sector risk and better sharing among that. And I think that's an important part, is all these different sectors that are out there is understanding and sharing that information across those sectors, and even with employees and teams, when teams are built out, instead of hey, just we've got this team with just these types of people, let's bring in other groups in the organization that typically may not have any input. So that's I really like that, Angela. That's great points. The one thing I wanted to this is a quote that is one of my favorite quotes, and it says, it was by Richard Riley. I think it was in education somehow. I got it from a guy named Simon Peyton Jones, who's actually a developer and teaches a lot of computer science. But he says, education should prepare young people for jobs that do not yet exist, using technologies that have not yet been invented to solve problems of which we are not yet aware. And so basically it's, how do we do that? How do we teach kids these types of things and get them to think about and things that because things move so fast right now, the things that they're seeing, even if they're in, say, middle school, are going to be totally different by the time they graduate.
I'll start. Sorry, Chelsea. I think it has a lot to do with just understanding the landscape, but also giving students the opportunity to experiment. When we interview people for internships or jobs, I mean, even the CFO at our company, it's a cyber company, but just back to y'all's point about, you don't have to be a cyber professional to be interested in cyber. Our CFO is very interested in cyber, and one of her questions when we interview people is, what do you tinker with? So you went and learned this thing and you have these skills, but what do you do outside of that to maintain your mental curiosity and that research development? What's next? What can I do? Where's your Tim the Toolman Taylor personality to make things that were designed to do X? You're able to make it do Y or something else. And so teaching kids and giving kids the environment to build and experiment and understand that activity actually builds that ability as you grow. There's been sayings for a long time that one of the things that changes when you go from kids to adult, it's not, you don't ask why anymore, you ask how, or some of these other questions. So maintaining their vision and ability to ask and investigate the why, I think is very important.
I think that, and not being afraid to fail. I think that's the other thing you hear about kids. Kids will fail and keep doing it, but as an adult, you're like, well, I'm not even going to do that because I don't want to fail. So.
Yeah, and I love the idea of what Mike said about, to me, it's how do you spark creativity and curiosity? And, I think that's one piece of it. I think the other is how do you set the foundation with policies that really encourage pursuing that curiosity. And so I think of things like having computer science as a core graduation requirement, or at least allowing it to satisfy it, right? So then you sort of have that electivity, hey, I want to take this class. I go into it because I wanted to do it. I know it'll help me move towards my goals of graduation. And in these classes, in those environments, how do you sort of foster an environment that really encourages that creativity? And I actually think that, we always hear STEM, right? I would love to bring in more arts into STEM. And I think about going into classrooms with my art teachers when I was in middle school and high school, and the creativity that was out there, right? You were open to sort of be yourself and express yourself. Wouldn't that be cool if we sort of merged with these core, concrete, technical, foundational classes or courses with sort of that openness, that sparse that curiosity that we can pull from the arts. And I think just thinking through ways like doing that in the foundation early on would be really cool, and not sort of thinking about these things in siloed buckets would be great.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Angela, go ahead.
I would just add that because I'm speaking from personal experience, like right now with my kids, the senior upstairs, you always have to, even if they are required to take the computer science course, if you have an instructor that's talking above their heads, you're going to lose them. You always have to, and I'm definitely talking from experience, you always have to get down to their level and see what makes you excited. How can do you understand the importance of this cybersecurity or computer science course? Let me tie this into your life. Let me tell you why it's important for your life. Because if you just teach it to them, you're gonna lose them. And I tried to make my son go down on all kinds of paths, like playing basketball. He was playing, he lost interest in it. I mean, anything. You could take anything, apply the same thing I just said to any subject, and to make, to spark interest in kids.
Yeah, so it gives them a sense of belonging instead of something of, hey, I can't understand this, or I can't do this. You help them belong. So no, I like that. That's good. Dr. Burley, do you have any?
I agree with everyone. I would just say that I also think that we have to really reflect on the difference between teaching people tools and helping them to understand the underlying process and what they're actually doing. And so, we, particularly when we're talking about developing the cybersecurity workforce, there's always a lot of conversation about we have to do this quickly. And quickly often results in a focus on teaching people how to use specific tools so that they can leverage those tools and get into the workforce. But the reality is that if they don't understand the underlying essence of what that tool is helping them to accomplish, they won't be prepared for the next tool or the next tool or the next tool. And so we've got to think about our educational system, regardless of, or all the way from K to Gray. We've got to think about how do we make sure that we have the right balance between, yes, we need people who understand the tools as they exist today, but we are doing them and ourselves a disservice if we don't help them to understand the underlying essence of what that tool is helping them to do.
Yeah, so basically tying it to all aspects of your life, I guess you could say. So let's think about that. So how do we do that then? How do we teach that, or teach kids to think that way, or people to think that way? How do we go down that path?
I mean, I'll start with what many of you mentioned, and that is the idea of failure, right? I mean, what we focus on so much in our educational system is the right answer, getting to success, as opposed to continuing to evolve. And really, science is all about failing. That's what it is. That's how we move forward. And I get excited when I fail, because what that means is I've taken one alternative off the table, and now my solution set has now gotten smaller, and I can continue to evolve in that way. And so if we could flip the way that we think about things like failure in the way that we're teaching our students, I think it allows them to approach life with the curiosity that Mike is talking about, and that excitement for learning and continuing to evolve, because you're not looking for the end answer, because there isn't one. You're always looking to the next step. And to me, that's the excitement of learning that we have to instill in our students.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I'm thinking about all these like excellent ideas, like what could they actually look like, and I think things like more lab classes, right? I mean, I think about chemistry and how poorly I did in chemistry, but I'm going to Dr. Burley's comment, you fail, and then eventually you get it right. And I think wouldn't it be cool if we had more lab-based learning for these technologies to understand the process, to spark the curiosity, to maybe create something new. or solve a challenge that like seems difficult to solve. And I think maybe rethinking with technology in particular, how do we actually deliver that content a little differently to encourage some of these things we're talking about, the underlying processes, the sparking curiosity, the lifelong learning sort of habits that are really critical to this career field. So just adding a couple of thoughts there.
Yeah, Mike, how do you, so, you're a college professor, and I know you also do a lot of training with people that are career changers moving from, some other career to something, so how do you deal with that with the people that you teach and, the career changers and that type of thing?
And so it is exciting to see the diversity of backgrounds, bus drivers, painters. We even had a neuroscience, someone that graduated with a neuroscience degree, and he just decided he wanted to do cyber while he was waiting to get into his medical school, or whatever the next step for that was. And the way, and even with my kids, I've got 4 kids of various ages, and ironically, the oldest one still doesn't get it, but the youngest ones do. And it's back to Angela's comments. You have to make it relatable. You have to, whatever it is. If you're trying to teach a topic, understanding what it is about that student or this, maybe the consensus of a class or a group. What is it that I can relate these cyber concepts to? And so when I teach, there's a lot of real world analogies I use. When we talk about networking, I compare that to the postal system. We talk about vulnerability assessments and security risk. I talk about your house and the layers of security. Well, that's everything between the street, the sidewalk, your yard, your fence, your doors, your alarm system, your dog or cat. All of those things are relatable. We live them, we see them, we understand that. And so in addition to making those topics relatable, finding out what it is that truly interests them. And again, in cyber, it's a bit vague and can be confusing. A lot of my students have graduated high school and even have degrees in other, and some of our clients too, in other areas. And when they talk about being interested or excited about cyber, that's the only term they know is, oh, that's cyber. Well, what about cyber? I don't know. There's other words that describe that. So truly looking for ways of helping them better understand and relate to the topics. Very important. And the one last thing I want to touch on that Dr. Burley mentioned is the failure. I think as a society, it's very common to use that word failure. I failed at this, I failed at that. And failure is what happens at the end of your life. I try to teach people that it's not a failure, that's just a new problem. And whether you didn't get the right answer this time, or you're working at it, the wrong way, or you're working on the wrong thing, it's not a failure. You're learning from it. And I teach that way too. The only way you fail my classes is you stop coming. So I teach people that even if you've got the wrong answer or you approached it the wrong way, go research how to do it right, or find the right answer. The resources are out there, and that then helps develop that hopefully that insatiable curiosity and that ability to go research and continue to tinker.
Yeah, no, I think the failure is such an important thing. My wife is a physical therapist, and she works with a lot of brain injury patients, ones that have had strokes and stuff. And one of the things we talk about is they have to fail a lot before they can get back to where they are. Some of them can't even take a single step, and so for them, it's, hey, let me just stand up. And then, okay, you're going to try to take a step up. You can't do it, and say over and over, but eventually they get there. And I think that's the key, is that continual striving and moving ahead and not worrying that, hey, you're going to fail, you're going to do it. And that is something I think that if we could flip that, I think Dr. Burley, you said that, just flip that instead of focusing on, but say, or maybe Chelsea, I think you said that, just, start saying, hey, it's okay to fail. Let's fail, let's do it and become better. So I really like that. What the other thing I guess I want to bring up is, how important is like civic engagement, public service, mentoring, that type of thing, to getting people to, I know, I guess I should say how important. We know it's very important, but how do we get more people involved in that and to, so that they want to step out and mentor and help people meet their goals or understand where they want to go, for instance? Anybody want to jump in?
I'll do it.
Are you trying to into cyber, like to get the more students into cybersecurity
Well,
via mentoring?
I mean, mentoring in general, I mean, if we want people to become, a part of the discussion we had was, yes, cyber is important, but the more important is helping them understand their long-term goals. What do you want to accomplish? Yes, cyber is great, but what's your goal? Where do you want to be? What kind of, career do you want to have, and where do you want to be? So how do we mentor and get people to understand or look at that instead of just looking at cyber? But so what do we need to do to get people involved in that engagement and mentoring and getting them thinking that way?
We use outreach when I was in diversity inclusion. We would go out to, like I said, the colleges, the high schools, and educate the staff members and also the students on exactly what the subject was. And, and also from there, I remember one time we were paired with students. And I had one student who did not know, and it's going to blow your mind. He was in a 10th grade, did not know the concept of college. He said, he's from inner city DC. I keep asking around, can someone explain to me what college is? Like, I don't understand the concept. And it blew my mind. I had to explain to him, you apply for it, you have your semester hours. This is what a semester hour is. I explained the whole thing, and the light bulb came on, and the student was so grateful. He said, ma'am, I've been trying to get someone around me in my neighborhood, in my environment, in my school, to break down the concept of college.
I'll add to that too, and just a funny story. I met a kid that came over to play with my son that didn't know what an Xbox was. But so there's different. There are definitely people out there that don't understand concepts, don't understand the reality, and there are some people that don't understand the reality of cybersecurity or privacy in general. But being a mentor and collaborating to share your knowledge is another one of those inherent characteristics that I've seen in successful cybersecurity people. They love to learn, and they love to share what they've learned, and that's also an element that I've seen in why cybersecurity people change jobs. The culture didn't fit their personality, but that's not everybody. And sure, in the years that I've been in IT and cyber, there are definitely those people that love to learn, but they don't have or appreciate the social skills to want to share it with others. So helping them find a way to participate in that. So social media is one of those. One of my good friends, a chief engineer, a chief cybersecurity engineer, loves to share his research and what he's learned, and that's almost daily. When I first met him, he could tell you what shoes you're wearing, but wouldn't look you. And he's one of those people that just doesn't make eye contact, and he's very awkward in situations where he's not familiar with people. But now with social media, he can make posts, whether it's anonymous or him. He can write blogs. So exposing both professionals and researchers and students and people that are interested in cyber to these resources that are out there. There's YouTube videos and blogs and social media and meetup groups that are all virtual now. So you can just listen and you don't even have to participate. But especially now due to COVID, all of that stuff is more prevalent online than it ever has been before. And just exposure to that stuff sometimes makes you more comfortable in participating in that collaboration. And it's really through leadership and demonstration and relatability and applicability that you help build that. And also back to Angela's comment about outreach. I think that's one of the things that has helped with regard to females in cyber, helped a lot, going back into the schools and help, especially the junior high level, and giving them that confidence, giving them resources to continue their interest in STEM, not just cyber, but all the STEM categories, so that as they progress into high school and then on into college, that they can maintain that passion and interest. You know, without the impact of their immediate social circle, they've got all these other resources that they can go to and be a part of to help foster that.
So we just have a few minutes left, so I'll give everybody a last chance. Dr. Burley, I'll start with you, and I want to, I guess, and you can also bring up anything else you want, but I want to go back to a point you made about changing the dialogue around cybersecurity. How do we do that? How do we change it so that we just don't talk about cybersecurity?
If I
I'll leave you with
you know, I don't have a very quick or simple answer to it. You know, it's one of those things where you change behavior one step at a time. I think that those of us who are leaders in the field have to begin to speak in that way and to have to be serious about the way that we are encouraging different individuals to move into different parts of the field and to be vigilant about it. There's been a lot of talk about how can we develop public media campaigns and such, but again, making sure that as we think those things through, that we are very purposeful and specific and doing our best to show the breadth of the field. One thing that goes throughout every aspect of this conversation has been diversity. And I think that that's really important, and to think about diversity in every single way that we can, even back to the discussion about mentorship and recognizing that there are all different types of people in this field, and mentorship means different things to different people in the way that we engage with individuals, and we have to make room for that. So that would be my answer. That's probably not as direct and specific as you would like.
That's great. I appreciate that. Thank you, Dr. Burley. Mike, I'll go to you, and then Angela and Chelsea, and then we'll wrap it up. So any final comments, Mike?
Sure. I think just real quick, in order to help foster and grow the next generation of cyber, we Chelsea and some of the other ladies' points, we've really got to reach back down into the primary schools, whether it's starting in elementary or definitely in junior high and through high school, to find ways to engage, mentor, and make available those tools, either online or physical environments or courses to help cultivate and continue to inspire and grow those interests in STEM.
Thanks, Mike. Angela, final thoughts?
Okay, I'm sorry. I was thinking I'm back on Teams, going up trying to find them unmute button. I'm a preacher's kid, so I'll use this as an example on how to get people excited about cybersecurity. I remember going to church all the time. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get up out of this house. I can't wait until I graduate high school. I don't care if I go to college. I don't care if I'm like a hobo and put the thing on the stick and just hit the road and hitchhike. I'm leaving this environment. And my dad became a preacher. He was a little rough around the edges. Then he started making it very exciting and started telling the stories and bringing it back home and making people laugh and making it exciting. I'm like, oh, I actually like going to church now. And so I think we need to use the same concept when it comes to cybersecurity. You hear cybersecurity, oh yeah, I'm staying away from that. But if you make it exciting and bring it home to people, I think you'll bring more people to the field.
Great points, Angela. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Yeah, I'll just say we as professionals in this space, all coming from different places to get where we are, and all going different places. Like we really need to advocate. We need to advocate for organizations to get involved in initiatives that really, make this a priority. We need to advocate with our, local communities. Hey, let's bring a nonprofit in. Let's get this into our local state curriculum. And we really, I think, as a wider breadth of the body, right, for cyber, we need to advocate nationally for something. I think it's got to be a multi-tiered approach. We advocate where we can the most close. We advocate for something more national. We advocate for something across our states. And just don't let it fall off the agenda. I think that's kind of my closing words on that.
Well, everyone, Chelsea, Angela, Mike, Dr. Burley, I really appreciate it. Thank you to Val and Cyber Future Foundation for hosting us and letting us talk about this important topic. And I imagine if anybody has additional questions, please reach out to CFF or any of us on LinkedIn or wherever, and we'd be more than happy to continue the conversation. So with that, thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Where are you getting info from?